Okay, everybody. I'm just waiting for 4 o'clock, and then we'll start with a presentation. So if you'll just bear with me, hopefully everything is working, and I'll explain what we're going to go through in a few minutes. I just want to make sure that everything is up and running. So if anybody is listening at the moment, would you just, if anyone could just send me a message and just say, yes, you can see and hear me, that would be great. I can still read those at the moment. And then, as I say, I'll go into a presentation in a moment. All right, thank you, Josh, for writing to me. And audio and video works great. Thank you, guys. So let's just give it another 30 seconds. Not that it's so important because people will be able to see this when it gets posted live, but nevertheless, let's just wait a few more seconds. There we go, we're live. So in theory, what I should be able to do is have this image overlaid on top of the PowerPoint presentation, but I can't do that. So you'll have to forgive my my attempt to try and do both things at the same time. So those people who've ever tuned into a live stream before, you know that basically I just talk about the company for a little bit, what we're trying to do, what we've achieved. And unfortunately, because I'm on my own, with lockdown, and I'm sure most of you are all in lockdown as well, it's not easy for me to read messages whilst I'm talking. So you'll have to forgive me, but any messages that people take or any questions we do pick up on, and then we'll cover after the event. It'll take between 30 and 40 minutes for me to go through this. So what is it that I plan to do? So first of all, I'm going to quick analysis of the crypto boom that we're going through at the moment. I think it's a very exciting period. I think it'd be odd if I didn't at least touch base as to what we think or what I think is going to happen. I want to briefly review the 2020. It's very easy to always just focus on what is wrong and what we're not doing right, and I want to put some things into perspective. And I do want to acknowledge that we don't get everything right. I want to briefly touch what we're going to do in 2021, particularly the first half. We don't really plan the entire year out. We have what we call a roadmap and sprint runs, etc. So, but the first half of this year is now tightly mapped. I want to talk about our crowd investment. Now, some of you may or may not be aware that we are launching a crowd investment campaign, and obviously it's a very important step in our company. So I want to make sure that I fully explain what it is, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, etc. And a very brief ending, not the most exciting ending, but a regulation update. So let's start off with the market predictions. This is my prediction, not Crypterium's prediction. So please don't take this. Crypterium is telling you X. But I, like everybody else, we follow this market. We read the news. When everything's going good, all the news says that crypto could reach new heights, and when the market is bad, it could be the next dot-com bubble, for example. Nevertheless, I think this time there is a lot of evidence that things are much different than this. What I would call the last boom is really at the end of 2017, generally created by ICOs and companies like Crypterium actually. But that was very much a retail-led boom. There was not a huge amount of money by institutional investors. Now, there were, of course, some specialist institutional investors, but in general, the big banks, the big Morgan Stanley's, everything they said was very negative, and they stayed out of it. But I think in the last 12 months, at least 12 months, we've seen a significant shift. The institutional investors have moved in. It's very clear. A large number of companies are specifically stating that it's a large part of their portfolio. I wouldn't say a large 5% or something, but 5% of a Morgan Stanley portfolio is a very big number. And someone once described that to me a few weeks ago that said, 3 years ago, if you invested in crypto and you got it wrong, you lose your job. Now, if you're an investment fund manager and you haven't invested in crypto, you've got a higher chance of losing your job if crypto rises because you've missed the boom. So I think that is very important. There's a huge shift in the developing markets to moving into this space. Countries like Turkey are buying newly not just Bitcoin, but a whole range of currencies. And if you compare that, say, to the value of their national currency, I think those things are very important. Regulation is moving in. We're now starting to see some solid regulation coming in around the world. And generally press. I mean, 2 years ago, you were sort of worried if you work in the crypto industry to say, well, I work in cryptocurrency, because all you got was negative comments. But now it's all about, what is this? Is it good? Is it going to change the world? And I think one of the things which I really like, and this I've stolen this from Pantera, and Pantera's brains, combined brains definitely exceed mine, but I do like their analysis of whether or not the halving effect has been factored in. And they analyzed quite a long period of time, and I think over that period of time they've given many predictions, and what they've shown is their predictions have pretty much come true over time. And on the both charts pretty much say the same thing here. My apologies if you can't see them that well because they are quite small, but effectively they are saying that based upon their projections that they were giving at the time of the halving, Bitcoin priced today is where it should be. And they say if it carries on, it will hit 115,000 by the autumn of 2021. Now, I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. But if you look at history and you look at all the driving factors, I feel very confident that it is more likely that we will double the value of crypto today than we will halve the value, and say, of the total market. But primarily we're talking about Bitcoin and Ether. But I think it is very realistic that we are still in the crypto boom. And I just want to point out, actually, before I do that, that the boom is very, very important for everybody because it brings in new users, it brings in institutional investors, it gives credibility, and you end up with this total circle effect. And it has a fantastic impact on Crypterium. There is a very strong correlation between what is happening with the price of Bitcoin and the amount of activity people have in the application. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work that out. So the more booms that we have and the more things that go up, of course, it is significantly better for companies like Crypterium than at a downward market. You could argue, I guess, for an exchange, they don't mind too much whether it's going up or down, but for us, there is a definite benefit in it going up. So what did we do and what didn't we do very well last year? So I think looking back, it's easy to forget how many new products and services we have launched. We're really launching something new let's say every 2 months. We've launched, I'll briefly touch on these in a minute. We've launched AI models, we've launched a Visa card, savings accounts, etc. We added a significant number of tokens. And we have seen fantastic rise in our numbers, and I'll show you some numbers in a moment. I think the most significant thing, perhaps, however, is the launch of the B2b program, because I will talk about that in a moment as to why it is so important. But we're still pretty much the only player in this space, and we are signing up approximately one new B2b partner per week. Might not sound a lot, but one partner, if they've got 200,000 users, even if you only convert a small number of them, that's a significant jump for us. We didn't do everything right. I think, if you were caught up in the union pay, my apologies. Hopefully we compensated everybody that felt that they deserve compensation. It was something outside our control. In the early days of cryptocurrency, we had three options. We had Visa, we had MasterCard, and we had Union Pay. MasterCard was not in the space. Visa at that time was very slow, and we went with Union Pay. Union Pay eventually woke up and decided it didn't want to be in crypto, and that relationship ended unfortunately quite abruptly, but it wasn't due to us, had nothing to do with us whatsoever. We launched Visa very quickly, and Visa has been really a huge success for us. We are, because we have Visa, that is the reason why the B2b program works. I'll talk about it again in a moment, but without Visa, most of our B2b partners wouldn't be that interested in us. And we are issuing a significant number of Visa cards, and we've got a lot to do. Another bad thing I would say, of course, was the KuCoin hack and how that affected us. But again, outside our control. Hopefully everybody felt that we handled it reasonably well. I think other companies were a bit faster than us. But at the end of the day, I think everybody was fairly treated. We've got a lot still to do on customer support, and I think we've still got quite a bit to do on transparency of our fees. The customer support, crypto is a new area, and it's very difficult to be entirely certain at the beginning what type of issues you're going to face. And of course, as we develop new products, we create new issues because the product itself has new questions, new issues to resolve, and so on. Traditionally, a financial institution like a bank or an insurance company would deal with one customer support member per 10,000 users. In our space, it's significantly more than that. We're looking at maybe one per 3,000, and we're working towards it. A lot to be done. It is our really number one service focus for this year. We really need to improve that. We need to be at the same level as the new challenger banks are at. We need fast turnaround. But at the moment, we acknowledge we haven't got that quite right. And I also acknowledge that we do need a bit more transparency in our fees. Some of our fees are clear, but some of them, I would guess, are hidden within the total picture. Then let's briefly talk about some of the products that we launched. I'm not going to spend long on this. You've done them, so I'm going to do it very quickly. The AI-based predictions, people are using it. We've got quite a lot of people who pay for the monthly subscription, but of course we've got a lot more people who just check in on a daily basis for the 4 or 5 free currencies. In a boom time, perhaps people don't use it as much because they just dump all the money into Bitcoin and everyone's happy. But nevertheless, the algorithms are still proving to be incredibly accurate. And if you haven't tried it out, please do so. Just play around with it for a little bit, and I think you'll find it, really a very attractive feature. As I said, the Visa card. We have a European partner for Visa. We're currently in negotiations, actually beyond negotiations. We're at the point of almost implementation with a US partner, and we would like to do the same for an Asian partner. We really want to be global for our Visa card. We can issue Visa cards pretty much to everywhere, but issuing a euro-based Visa card to a US citizen, of course, is not as good as issuing a dollar-based Visa card out of the US, where the postal service can deliver it in 24 hours, for example. So we are expanding this, but this is really a huge part of our significant growth this year. Visa is a much more accepted card than Union Pay. And as I said, when it comes to the B2b program, it's very, very key for us. So what happens is we will talk to, let's say, an FX exchange or another cryptocurrency app, and the first thing they usually ask is, what can I do with the cryptocurrency? Can we load it? Can we spend it? And when we explain to people that we can integrate the token inside our application, we have now our own custody capability for tokens which are not, let's say, mainstream tokens. So let's say there's a token out there which might be number 700 and it's not on BitGo. We have the capability of bringing it in-house, providing a custody solution, And provided that there is an exchange that we can integrate with, we can then get liquidity. So what that means is for almost every company out there that has its own cryptocurrency, we can produce a Visa card for that particular company, which enables them to effectively load the card with their own token, which is a huge issue for many companies. In addition, there's a lot of companies which want to pay their users, and how better to pay their users than through a digital wallet, and then that person can just load it onto a Visa card. So this has really been, a very big success for us, and and I'll tell you some numbers maybe a bit later. Savings accounts, we launched the savings accounts. Now let me just take a step back. If you go back to 2017-18, companies launched just solely on the basis of a savings account, or their only product was savings, or their only product was lending. So we've now got the Visa, we've got the lending, we've got the savings, and the savings has been very successful. We're in a nice campaign earlier this month of 21%. We had a total, I think, of just over 10 million, and pretty much the total supply of savings has gone, which is about 10% of our total CRPT is now earning up to 21%. As I said, we launched loans. So practically all of the key components that you would expect in, say, a traditional bank, lending, saving, payment wallets, Visa cards, we have added all of them in the space of about 12 months. And as I said, it's easy to focus on the fact that our customer support might not be, quite as perfect as everybody would like. But nevertheless, I don't think we should forget the fact of what we've launched, which I'm, personally very good with, very happy with. As I said, the SDK program, or white label program, whatever you want to call it, very important for us. Just to explain to you how this works. We can integrate with another application using an SDK program, or we can build basically a mirror image of our own application in anything from 2 weeks to say 6 weeks, depending on the level of complexity. We can add a specific token, and as I've said, we can even add that token to a Visa card. What we're also able to do is we're also able to change the Visa card itself so that it reflects the company that we're working with. Now, we don't have a complete branding capability. So for example, on the screen here, you can see, for example, Gleek. Gleek will have its own Visa card, but it will really be more of a color-driven card, Visa with the Gleek colors, than it is, say, with the Gleek name. That's not because of our capability, it's just a very complicated process to get approval from Visa for every individually branded card. So what effectively we have is we have a Visa card with the Crypterium logo and no Crypterium name, just the logo, in the Gleek colors. And companies like this, they're ordering large numbers of cards. Just from the companies that you can see on this screen, more than 40,000 Visa cards have been ordered by some of these companies. And each Visa card, of course, is income generating for everybody. We charge a small upfront fee. When I say small, anything from, say, $25,000 to, say, $50,000. And then we charge a minimum monthly transactional fee. So what that means is if we have a partner, they pay all our costs for integration. We then have a minimum revenue that is being generated every month. In our case, the minimum is 5,000 euros. So that's the minimum fee that we will generate from any partner. And then everything that those partners generate above that, we share 50-50. And it's working out very well for everybody. So far, some companies have really got quite excellent growth in our user numbers. And what I think is most important here for us is a company like Crypto App, for example. You may have heard of them. If their users are working on our platform and we are sharing the revenue 50-50, then we have acquired a customer effectively for free compared to, say, a traditional financial institution. So if you are a traditional bank, for example, the average cost of finding a customer for Visa is between $80 and $150. So instead of paying $100+ to find new customers, what we are doing is effectively we're bringing those customers to us for free, and then we're sharing in the rewards. And it's a very nice economic model that is really running very well. We also added a load of new coins, and that is still a key feature for us going forward. The fact that people can transact between each coin without having to come in and out has been very successful. We got some numbers here. I don't want to give you, exact numbers because this is obviously very private company data, and we don't want to tell all our competitors exactly what we've got. But I do want to show you, some of our successes here. So what I've got on the screen are, in the top left here, total registered customers. Then I've got activated users and transactional value. And if you find a way of calculating these three together, you end up effectively with turnover. Now, our registered users, this is publicly available information because you can pretty much find this off Google Analytics or whatever it is, and we also publish that. So it's 350,000 registered users at the end of December this year. But of course, a registered user and an activated user is not exactly the same thing. An activated user is someone who's done something inside the app. They've put money into it, or they've sent some money to a wallet, or they've loaded the Visa card, etc. And this shows that here, okay, we've got some nice growth. These bars, by the way, are not exact representations. It was just to show the general trend, but the numbers are correct. So we grew, for example, in our activated users 500% from January 2020 and January 2019. So over 1 year, we grew 500%. Then in the next 6 months, we grew another 200%. And then in the next 6 months, we've grown another 376% on top of the June number. So our growth now it's dramatic. It's not a hockey stick, as some people like to call it, but it is a dramatic growth level. At the same time, and this is partially supported by the crypto boom, people are spending, or not spending, but using the application for significant sums. So the actual transaction value means they either did an exchange or they loaded their Visa card, something that generates a revenue for Crypterium. And the average person is now doing close to 1,400 euros a month if they're active. So when you have significantly growing registered customers, the number of them that are being activated is growing dramatically, and the value of the transactions that they're doing is also growing. You end up with some very nice turnover numbers. Last year, we did something like 150 million in turnover, but the last quarter was, a significant proportion of that turnover was 500% more than our June discrete month turnover. So we grew by more than 5 times in the space of 6 months. So we've really got some, nice traction going here. And when you combine that with the crypto boom, and you combine that with all of the products that we've launched, which has a big impact here. The reason why we're getting more and more activated users is because we have more services. Maybe you log in the app and you wanted to do a loan, and we didn't have a loan 6 months ago, so you just delete the app. All these things add up. So we are very happy with the way our numbers are working at the moment. So what are we doing now? The first half of this year, a lot, of course, is still new products, but it's more about completing, I would say, the picture and getting some improvements, not necessarily about just brand new products. So one thing we've talked about for a while is we want to have fiat currency services, and I'll talk about that as part of our strategy in a minute. We want to make sure that the application is seamless and easy to use. We want to talk about, I want to add the fact that we are launching new card solutions right across the globe, etc. So a lot of this is now about tidying up things that we've launched or are improving. So for example, we have notifications, but they're not particularly great notifications. Every day I'll get a message from Revolut, for example, telling me that Bitcoin has gone up 5% today. why don't I, get inside the application? We're missing that opportunity. So a lot of these things now are smaller, minor improvements, but very important. Again, we have an authentication system, but it's email. It's not as good as the Google authentication. So these are the type of things we're doing. So the key this year is about bringing in, I think, more stability, making sure that the products that we've launched are working to the best of their ability. And we do want to have a few new features, particularly in the IBAN. All of that leads me to the crowd investing that we're doing at the moment. So maybe not everybody on the screen who is watching my screen right now has been involved, but we sent out an email to the most of our user base. So if you've been using our platform, hopefully you got an email. And we are doing a crowd investing, and it's a very important stage in our development. We've had really amazing feedback so far. I'll just give you a couple of numbers. We sent out an email about a week ago from the people that have registered, and if you've gone through the Seedrs registration process, first of all, you click on a link and you get to the Seedrs platform, and then the Seedrs platform asks you if you would like to invest, what type of investment are you likely to invest, and you have various categories. Now, of course, not everybody who clicks on those I'm interested are going to eventually invest, but just to put the the groundwork down, we've had over 2,000, I think 2,200 people as of last night have said that they are very interested in investing, and the total value that they've put on that is £10 million. Now, we do not expect £10 million from those 2,000 people, but it is a very interesting initial feedback that people are interested in the space and would like to be a shareholder. So we sent out a second email last night, and we will do 2 or 3 more. And we do it this way for several reasons. So first of all, we need to test interest. If none of our users were interested in potentially being investors in crypto, in Crypterium, why would third party individuals who've never heard of us, why would they want to invest in? So having an interest from our user base is an important step, and it gives confidence to other investors. We then, once we've got the level of interest, we then launch on the Seedrs platform, and they distribute the opportunity to all of the network. Now, Seedrs is an international platform, but it's primarily European centric. They have a few restrictions, so my apologies if you happen to be one of the people when you click on yes, I'm interested in investing, and you get a message that says I'm sorry, we can't help you. It's probably because of the country that you came from. However, we do get the information that you showed an interest, and we are able to help you directly. So if for whatever reason Seedrs said, we can't help you because you come from, let's say, Afghanistan, then maybe we can help directly. I'm using Afghanistan probably inappropriately here, but I think you understand what I mean. Then we set an amount as to how much we want to raise. We run a campaign. It's for 4 to 6 weeks. When we launch on the Seedrs website, there'll be a pitch deck, which basically takes you through the type of stuff I'm talking about today, actually, a video and a proper opportunity. At the end of it, Seedrs will act as a nominee shareholder. What that means is you are an individual shareholder with individual rights, but so that everything can be easily run, effectively Seedrs will act as a holding shareholder for voting of key issues, etc. And then once we have a successful raise, we then use this as a stepping stone to go out to a wider community. We are also working with institutional investors whilst we're doing this, and I'll just want to put this into some form of perspective right now. The first thing to understand is we are not doing this because we need a few £1 million. We have sufficient capital to do all of the things I have already shown you on these screens. We have sufficient capital to launch the IBANs, to set up Google Authenticator, and to carry on running our business on a day-to-day basis. But if you want to go to a big institutional investor, first of all, we don't have a traditional capital base. As you know, most of you or some of you will have been part of the ICO, and that is still tricky money when it comes to how regulators review the money and how institutional investors look after it. So if we wanted, for example, to set up a company in the US and apply for various licenses, we need a different type of capital. Secondly, it sets a price. If we are able to raise, let's say for sake of argument, £5 million through a crowd investment round, we set a price, and then that price is a baseline upon which we can talk to an institutional investor, because we can say, look, we've already got 2,000 people that have invested at this price. Your price now has to be plus something on top of that. And there are many examples of how this works. But I want to explain why it's also important from a strategic perspective. So this is how I look at our strategy right now. We as a company, we see ourselves as being digital and global, as opposed to fiat and local. So you could say, your local bank is a local bank and it only deals with fiat and they won't touch crypto. Then you had a lot of companies, and these companies, crypto.com, spin.com, they're also crypto and global. Really, they should be over on the right-hand side, but just to illustrate the vision, I just wanted to highlight where Crypterium is right now. And then you've got a lot of companies down here which are, fiat first and foremost, but they are definitely global or have visions of being global. So you've got, Western Union, of course, that is a global company, but now you've got fiat companies like PayPal moving into digital. You've got fiat companies like Revolut, which started off local in the UK, but have now expanded to something like 8 or 9 countries and applying for licenses in the US, but they're also digital. And what we can see from regulation, from the fact, for example, as I said, PayPal has now added crypto into its portfolio. This is the space the winners of the future will be. They will have this sort of area here. They will be digital, fiat, and global. They're not going to be local and fiat. Alipay will just switch when it wants to. Alipay is not really that interested, probably on a global level. China's big enough for it. But on a global space, this is where we want to be. So we are working in the space that will have Coinbase, they'll have Revolut, it'll have Western Union. Western Union's business model, as far as I'm concerned, is a dead business model. But don't be surprised if Western Union changes its business model to be a winner in this space. So this is the space we're in, and this is you don't do this on a few £1 million. You don't get to be global, fiat, and digital on a few £1 million. Now, this will be very difficult for you to see, unfortunately, if you're looking at a phone. So I'm going to explain it. So I'm going to show you a few slides which show the valuations of some of these companies that are in the space that we are dealing with. So I wanted to choose Revolut. Revolut might not be a company you all know, but they're a very high-profile bank now in the UK and have moved into Poland and other key parts, and they're moving into the US. They started with a small amount of capital from private investors, etc., and then they did a small crowdfunding. They raised about 6 million through the Seeders platform. So they did a bit of a crowdfunding. They are now one of the most respected players in the market. What this shows is their valuation. They have a valuation of 5.5 billion, and since they raised 6 million pounds or dollars about 3 or 4 years ago, they have raised another 918 million, almost $1 billion. They've almost raised $1 billion. And they're not making money yet. Their revenue stream at the end of 2017 was only £12 million. £12 million in 2017, only £58 million, etc. And they're losing a lot of money. They lost £100 million last year. But do the owners care? Because if you look at the valuation is £5.5 billion. These are the companies that we are aspiring to be. We don't want to be a small crypto player in a crypto-only space. We want to be a player that is within the entire crypto community that is also providing fiat currency services. And the B2b program is an incredibly important part of that, because we are starting to integrate with applications which are purely currently fiat currency services. We are bringing to them the crypto capability. And that is, a key reason why we are, we're going down this path. Here's another bank. It's another UK bank. They've only got something like a million users, maybe a few more. They've raised 474 million. And I think what is very interesting for me is the crypto community and the space we are in is still relatively high margin. The reason why Revolut loses money is they have a fantastic service and they're going big on an international level, but they provide services to a very low margin business, which is basically banking, traditional banking services. And our vision going forward is to grow as much as we can, of course, in the high margin business, and outsource those things in the, let's say, the low margin businesses where we just don't think we have a, let's say, a competitive advantage. Why would we have a competitive advantage of doing fiat currency services, say, over Starling Bank or Revolut Bank? It's unlikely. So we will work with a partner that can provide those services for us, whilst at the same time, we take that total package and we provide that to also third parties. And as I said, we're signing up one new third party a week right now. So that's how we see the future. So for us, I would say there's 4 key steps for us to be successful. First of all, our user experience. Now, I believe our app is one of the nicest apps to use. We have, of course, a few glitches, and you might say, well, sometimes it takes 10 minutes for something to happen. We're aware of that. But as I said, we're competing against players that maybe, have spent $1 billion getting their service to work 100% perfect. But we're aware of that. But I think the user experience is good, and that is very important for us. It has to be simple. We're not here to compete with, say, Coinbase Pro. We're here to provide a service that everybody can use by just clicking on a button, and it's intuitive, it's efficient, and but we have some steps to do. The next part, as I said, is partner-led user acquisition. By bringing in partners, we bring in users, and we bring them in for free. In fact, we bring them in for less than free because people pay us to bring them in. And that is a very important part of our total picture. Of course, we still take retail customers, but it means we don't have to spend tens of millions of pounds advertising to bring them in. Global expansion is very important. As I said, I don't believe crypto can be local. It has to be global. So we need global Visa cards. And then the global Visa card means one that is in dollars, one that is in yen, one that is in whatever currency. So that is a core focus for us. And they require new companies being set up in new markets. And as I mentioned, we intend to own the key parts of the chain which have high profitability. So owning the exchange, for example, as much as we can adds high profitability, whereas owning the fiat currency, we can just outsource that to a company that already has built all the systems. So we need to bring in-house more and more of those things that have good income, and continue to outsource where we don't think we can do that. I'll give you an example. Custody services. To do the B2B platform properly, we need to provide a custody capability to new tokens. If you go to BitGo is our primary custody provider. BitGo will charge a company that is a relatively small token as much as €30,000 a month, and then still take 6 months to do that. To get it up and running, because it's just not a priority for them. There's no interest in it for them. But for that token, it's very important, and for us, so we had to build our own custody capability. So we built that. It's sitting there behind the scenes now. So that's what I mean by bringing in-house things that give us more control over the total supply, where it's a high margin, and just outsourcing where it's not. Visa cards, for example, another perfect one. To be a Visa card issuer, directly issue the card so that there's no intermediary between us and Visa, we would have to go through a very extensive program. That is going to cost $3-4 million dollars per market that we go in. It's a very complicated process. So right now we have to work with partners. But when you work with partners, they take a percentage of a very attractive margin and leaves us less control as to how we can work within that. So that's something we will again take control back. So that's our vision, and that's why we are crowdfunding. It's not because we need a few £1 million to carry on business. That is not the position. We have a very healthy business at the moment, growing at a very fast pace, but we have a vision to be much bigger, much more than that. And when we look at the companies that have already done it to some degree, and I've used the Revolut as an example because they have crypto and fiat, the valuations are astronomical. So we're going out with a relatively very attractive, in my opinion, early proposition to our user base. If you would like to become a shareholder, I wish I was in that first seeders round for Revolut, because when they went out, I don't know what the valuation was, but I can guarantee it wasn't 5 billion. And hopefully, that's where we will be in 3 or 4 years' time. Maybe we won't be, 5 billion on a particular stock market. Maybe, one of these other players that are too slow to react look at us and say, well, we need a partner. Maybe they'll invest in Crypterium, etc. There's many ways in which valuations, can be created. So that's why we're so excited by this phrase, and that's why I'm very happy that we've had a very interesting first launch. And in the next 2 weeks, if you haven't had the opportunity, please have a look at it at least. Even if you don't want to invest, why not just see some of the materials? Right, winding down now. I said it would take about 30 to 40 minutes, and I'm coming up to the 40-minute mark. So just to update you on regulation. We are a UK-centric company. Many of you know that we have a large development team out in Moscow. Nevertheless, myself and the CEO and our head of compliance and strategy, etc., we're based in the UK. So it's very important for us to be compliant with all UK regulation. We put in a strong application for to be regulated by the UK, and we were given temporary registration. Now, what that means is that we were sort of semi-approved, not fully approved, but unfortunately, the UK regulator has been so snowed under with Brexit and, of course, with COVID, that there was something like 200 applications in 2020. The deadline for everybody to be approved was, I think, the end of October, and they only reviewed 3 companies. So they've reviewed all our materials and said, so far you're looking okay, but we haven't got the formal approval. But what it means, though, is we are now effectively approved for the remainder of this window. I think the current window is until the end of September. So I don't see any impediments now to making that happen. The next stage on this path would be to start to acquire e-money licenses in the key markets. And again, that requires some of the capital I've been talking about. For example, just to have an application in the UK, you have to put to one side £400,000 for minimum capital, etc. But it's much more complicated than that, and if we were successful, that capital requirement is significantly greater. So this is an important step. We are now going down the various regulation paths, and where we have put in applications, we've been as approved as much as possibly they can approve us. And I think that's it. Again, I apologize. I don't have the ability to read questions the way I've done this live stream. Hopefully the way I've done it with my face on one side and the slides on the other, it wasn't too off-putting. Any questions that you have, we will try and pick up. Also, just to let you know, so if anybody out there who wasn't thinking of investing or is thinking of investing, but you have some questions, feel free to write to me. My email address is Kimm, Kimm, at Crypterium.com. You can happily write to me. It's one of my #1 focus, as you can imagine, at this point in time. I'm also going to be allocating some personal time to anybody who would like to put in a significant sum of money, or maybe not significant to Pantera Capital, but maybe significant for you, and you would like to talk to me. I'm also going to be available. This is an important stage, and I want to make sure that you have as much information as we're able to give you. And if as I say, if you want to talk to me privately, or you want to have some answers to questions on email, please feel free. Kimm@crypterium.com, and that's my private or my work email. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I hopefully that you found something useful in this, and we will load this onto the Facebook page in the nearest future. So I'm going to try and stop sharing now, and wish you all